Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something I'm super excited about. We're going to completely flip the script on how we view modern commerce. We're looking behind the curtain to see how businesses actually connect with us. Trust me, by the end of this, you're never going to look at a simple everyday transaction the exact same way again.
Okay, let's dive right in. When you hear the word marketing, what instantly pops into your head? If you ask most people, they'd probably tell you it's just a fancy word for selling, right? Or maybe advertising or PR. And honestly, that's a totally natural assumption to make. But what if I told you that selling is actually just one tiny little piece of a much larger puzzle?
To piece that puzzle together, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering more than just selling, the 5 concepts of marketing, the evolution of marketing, why marketing matters, and finally, marketing in developing economies.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, more than just selling.
So, we really need to bust this myth that marketing is just about aggressively pushing a product onto a buyer. It's so much deeper than that, and it actually starts way before a product even exists. To really wrap our heads around this, let's look at how Philip Kotler, a total legend in this space, defines it. He says marketing is a human activity directed at satisfying needs and wants through exchange processes. The absolute rock-solid foundation here, human needs. You don't just invent a product in a vacuum, you find a need. I mean, think about it. We all have endless wants, like say a brand new sports car, but our wallets kind of restrict us, right? So when people actually have the ability to buy and they decide to pull the trigger to satisfy that need, boom, an exchange takes place.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that this whole process forms an ongoing loop. It's a continuous circle. You go from identifying wants to converting them into products, getting those products to the consumer, and then, crucially, gathering feedback. Marketing isn't just some one-and-done transaction where you wipe your hands the second cash is exchanged. No way. It's an endless cycle of adapting, listening, and striving for real, long-term customer loyalty. Actually, the only time this cycle truly ends is if the business itself goes under.
So as you can see, there's a massive, stark difference between selling and marketing. Selling, well, that's essentially just modern-day bartering. The focus is entirely on the product, and it's all about the seller's need to turn that product into cash. Like today, it's super short-term. Marketing, on the other hand, flips that script completely. It puts the spotlight squarely on the wants of the buyer. The company figures out what you want first, and then goes, okay, how do we make this? It's a long-run game. It's about tomorrow's markets, sustainable growth, and building a genuinely delighted customer base.
Moving right along to Section 2, 5 concepts of marketing.
Now, this shift from obsessing over the seller to focusing on the buyer, that definitely didn't happen overnight. There are essentially 5 distinct concepts, or philosophies, that businesses use to drive their marketing. You can basically picture these 5 steps as an evolutionary ladder of business maturity. They show the wildly different ways companies have tried to solve the core puzzle of commerce, stepping up from the oldest, most basic philosophies all the way to the modern ones we see today.
Let's break down the first 3 rungs of that ladder. First up is the production concept. This one assumes consumers just want cheap, widely available stuff, so the whole focus is just churning things out on a massive scale to lower costs. Next is the product concept, which swings the other way, assuming consumers want top-tier quality and all the bells and whistles. But this has a pretty fatal flaw. Imagine a biscuit manufacturer. They bake this incredible, high-quality biscuit, package it beautifully, but they completely ignore what consumers actually like. So the biscuit tastes absolutely terrible to the target market. Despite all that quality, it totally tanks. Then you've got the selling concept. This is where a company assumes, hey, people won't buy this unless we push it. So they go all in on aggressive persuasion and promotions, often completely ignoring whether the customer is actually happy after they hand over their money.
Which brings us to Section 3, the evolution of marketing.
The way businesses operate has completely transformed over the years. These concepts we just talked about, they aren't just academic theories. They actually evolved historically as businesses slowly woke up to the real power of the consumer. Think back to the early days of the Industrial Revolution. Demand was wildly outpacing supply. If you made something, anything, you could sell it. That was the era of the production concept. But as competition started heating up, that easy ride came to a screeching halt. Suddenly, you couldn't just sell whatever rolled off the assembly line. Companies realized they had to improve their products and, eventually, aggressively promote them just to survive.
We can actually map this evolution out on a timeline. Take the US market, for example. The production concept absolutely dominated the late 1880s. Fast forward to the 1920s, and the focus shifted to the product concept. Then the 1950s hit, and boom, it became the era of aggressive selling. But eventually, businesses had a light bulb moment. They realized the ultimate cheat code was figuring out what consumers actually need before making a single thing. And that birthed the marketing concept in the 1970s, where the consumer is officially king. Today, we've evolved even further into the societal concept. This one mandates that businesses have to balance their profits and customer satisfaction with the overall well-being of society. Things like not polluting the environment or bleeding resources dry.
All right, Section 4, Why Marketing Matters.
So we've seen how businesses have evolved to meet our needs. But if we zoom out from the individual buyer and seller for a second, let's ask the million-dollar question. Why does this matter to society as a whole? Well, marketing is quite literally the engine of our modern economy. First off, it's the activity that actually generates revenue. All that brilliant research and production, totally meaningless if the product doesn't sell. But beyond just lining corporate pockets, a highly efficient marketing system literally delivers a higher standard of living by giving you and me choices. It creates what we call utility, meaning it makes sure products are right there, exactly when, where, and how you need them. And on a macro level, it drives massive employment and acts as a huge indicator of a country's overall economic health.
Let's move to our final area, Section 5, Marketing in Developing Economies. Let's see how all of this plays out when we look at the global stage. Because while that societal concept we talked about sounds like a beautiful ideal, the reality on the ground can look vastly different depending on where you are. When we put a highly developed economy side by side with a developing economy like India, for example, the dynamic is super interesting. In developed economies, you've got this mature buyer's market. Intense competition means the modern marketing and societal concepts are thriving. But in developing economies, the landscape is incredibly mixed. You'll often see all 5 of those marketing concepts we discussed coexisting at the exact same time. Because of supply shortages and a lack of real competition in certain sectors, many developing markets are still firmly stuck as a seller's market. And the harsh reality of a seller's market is that the seller holds all the cards. Because competition is low, manufacturers can just churn out whatever they want without really sweating over consumer satisfaction. What does that mean for the buyer? Well, it usually means limited variety, and honestly, sometimes lower quality goods. Plus, with a lower per capita income, people are spending the bulk of their money just on basic necessities. There's not much left over for discretionary spending, which puts a hard cap on how much marketing can really do. On top of all that, consumers in these economies often just aren't aware of their rights. It's incredibly hard to demand better quality or top-notch service when you've just never been exposed to a system that offers you better choices.
Which brings us perfectly full circle. We've seen today that true marketing is so much more than just a quick transaction. It's this deep, ongoing process of figuring out what humans need, delivering real long-term satisfaction, and pushing entire economies forward. So I want to leave you with this thought to chew on the next time you tap your card or hand over some cash. Are the businesses you interact with every single day just trying to sell you something they made? Or are they truly practicing marketing by deeply satisfying your actual needs? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.